The Stephen Kenny era is a battle for the future of the soul of Irish football. And in fairness to him, he hasn't shied away from that whatsoever. He has absolutely embraced the notion that he wants his team to redefine how we are thought about on the global stage, that there won't be any lazy assertions from the opposition manager coming in going, well, you know, they're a very British team. They like to get the ball forward to the two big men they have up front, and they press a little bit, but mostly they sit back and they don't really want to keep the ball that much, which is the exact shorthand that opposition managers have used for, well, all the way back to, you could argue, since we had Roy Keane in the team. And even then they would still come and patronise us with, oh, very spirited team, this Ireland team. Not great at the out football though, and we'll see through them. So if this doesn't work, we're screwed.
Screwed in which way now? Are you talking about the fact that we will never be able to put style before anything else ever again, that we won't be able to feel excited about a manager who has managed a team and played football in an attractive manner, that pragmatism will win? Are you saying that this is the argument up for debate here?
I think that if the Stephen Kenny era isn't successful, it's going to be a very long time before we get anybody who comes in and talks about playing good quality football. The next manager will automatically be like, this is a results game. If Stephen Kenny, if this era is not successful, we are going to enter into a new era of Ireland managers who are mediocre / failed Premier League / Championship managers. So come on down, Alan Kirbishley. Maybe we can just about afford the king of them all. Come on down, Sam Allardyce. You've got that Limerick link after all. That if the Stephen Kenny era is unsuccessful, actually the whole infrastructure in Irish football rests on this now working, because Stephen Kenny is the best manager that has come out of Ireland in a generation. And if he is not successful, then all of a sudden the self-confidence that the league has, the self-confidence that the people working in football in Ireland has, is going to be knocked. Think about the two big stories that have happened over the last couple of weeks involving the League of Ireland and commentary around the Ireland team, which has set the agenda. It was the alleged pub league jibe from John Sheridan, and it was a fairly mild assertion from Jason McAteer that there's going to be a job of work for Stephen Kenny to do to convince these players that he's the right man for the job, as there is in any new person taking over a job. But the fact that he used the word pedigree, the suggestion was that the league and football in Ireland isn't quite at the position yet where you can automatically have a throughput of talent, right? If that fails, then the visceral reaction that you heard to the pub league jibe, whether or not it actually happened, and to McAteer, that was a defensive, reflexive, no, oh no. What if there's a grain of truth in what's being said? I felt that was kind of part of the backlash against both those things. No, look, John Sheridan, whatever, hasn't won friends and influenced people just yet, so that didn't help. But like, if Stephen Kenny doesn't work, then come on, how do you come back from that? How does domestic football come back from that? He's their best and their brightest.
I agree with you on half of that. Definitely on the point that there will be a Sam Allardyce-shaped hole that will be addressed in the Ireland manager's job if this goes down the toilet pretty quickly from Stephen Kenny. Just on that point, first of all, I don't think either of us are suggesting here that there is immediate pressure on Stephen Kenny. I certainly don't think that. I think he's going to get a good few months at this at the very least. I think he should be given at the very minimum a full year to actually implement a style of football, to actually try and build up some cohesion in an international team, which, as we all know, takes a long time to do. So I hope we're not having any conversations about this, regardless of the results, for at least another year. But if this era is not to be successful, you're right, the FAI are probably going to go and favour pragmatism, which tends to favour results when it comes to Ireland in recent history. It doesn't necessarily mean, though, that the League of Ireland need to have a checking of their confidence, or that Irish football people need to check their own confidence. The very fact that Stephen Kenny got the opportunity to become Republic of Ireland manager should be the boost of confidence that the League of Ireland are operating off right now. The fact that a League of Ireland team were in the group stages of the Europa League, and he was a pretty bloody good
Yeah, but this is a cycle. This is a repetition of
manager.
This is a repetition of a cycle. This is exactly the Brian Kerr gets the gig. There's this crazy, amazing outpouring of emotion. Do you remember? Was it Brian Cowan was made Taoiseach, right? And all of Offaly descended on the Dáil, and there was this kind of wild party about how it was going to be amazing for Offaly because they're now have got that power. Well, there was a similar style opening day press conference where the Shelbourne was crammed full of people to celebrate Brian Kerr becoming the manager, and 2 years later he was gone. And the notion of somebody coming through the system again to be the Ireland manager like that, who you invest time in and who has a deep ingrained knowledge of the league, and that got blown away for 15 years. So Kenny, this has to work, and like it took 15 years to get back to that situation. So what I'm saying is, if it doesn't work this time, any manager working in the League of Ireland now can't really begin to dream that at some point he could get into the Ireland system, take the under-21s, be successful with them, be part of the next. Do you know what I mean?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that is necessarily dependent on, because what if a League of Ireland manager comes through and has managed to get to the Europa League group stages by winning every game 1-0? Not every League of Ireland manager is Stephen Kenny. They might have different philosophies on it. Maybe we produce our own Sam Allardyce. That might be a more attractive prospect to the FAI. I was actually watching that Reeling in the Years episode last week, 2008, when the scenes from Offaly were there. It was outrageous, by the way. But those Shelbourne scenes were there for Stan. Were they not? Were they not there for Giovanni Trapattoni?
No, absolutely not. No. When Stan came in, his first press conference was a complete joke. That was the "I'm the gaffer, the buck stops with me." That was his, and there was no hooting, hollering, and there was no surge of people. There were members of the public at the press conference celebrating, as in League of Ireland people and FAI people were celebrating when Kerr got the gig, but there wasn't when Stan got the gig, and there certainly wasn't when Trapp got the gig. It was like, oh, let's go and see the famous manager. But it wasn't this rising up of somebody from inside the system. It felt like Kerr was breaking a glass ceiling again, back to like you could actually come through the Irish football system. And Stephen Kenny's come through the Irish football system. And lest anybody mistake this, I am dying for Stephen Kenny to work, because it would be an unveiling of Irish football culture in a way that would actually break us from this reliance on essentially mediocre talent who happen to make it at championship level in England.
But what is the Irish football system? Is it you specifically mean the League of Ireland here, obviously, but like, I mean, does the Irish football system not take credit for doing their own coaching badges? And if Robbie Keane happens to become a great manager all of a sudden,
happy days if Robbie Keane becomes a great manager.
Take credit for that because he did his coaching badges here. Like, I don't think this is the be all and end all for the hopes and dreams of League of Ireland managers, because I think that is actually the glass ceiling has been shattered. I think that Stephen Kenny's international career as a manager has already, what he's done so far has been a success. Like, this is not his.
This is all that matters. This is the only show in town. The under-21s doesn't matter.
I get that. But it is something, At least there will be at least one small caveat to show for it. I think that if you're a League of Ireland manager, the thing that you are looking at to achieve is to get to where that Dundalk team got to under Stephen Kenny. It is to qualify for a European competition proper. And if you are in that company, then if you're a Europa League manager, then you have to be considered to be brought into at the very least, the underage Irish system, which will then give you a pathway into the senior system.
Maybe.
I do agree with you that there is a connection, and like Stephen Kenny and the League of Ireland are inextricably linked. And whatever happens over the next, hopefully, couple of years, will either be a boom for the League of Ireland and its reputation publicly anyway, and people who are into the League of Ireland will not think about the league, and there will be a boom for that, or it will be a little bit of a stick to beat the league with. Whether or not that'll actually practically impact things in the FAI, I'm not so sure.
Colin Buig is with us. Colin, good morning to you. How are you?
Greetings, Darren.
You're here to talk tennis, right? But before we get into tennis, briefly, let's talk football. What do you want to ask?
Well, this stems from a discussion that you and I had yesterday, among other members of Off the Ball, which is what constitutes success for the Stephen Kenny era as Republic of Ireland manager. Is it good football? Is it progressive football? Or is it qualifying for tournaments? And that's it, regardless of how we play. And it's a debate that went on longer than expected yesterday, and now here we are, bringing it to the wider world.
Owen Sheehan, was last year a successful year for the Kerry footballers?
Yes.
Right, so there's your answer. Owen is happy to wallow in defeat. He'll take a few flashy moments and ultimately failure. So
it's not what it is at all. Like I'm not sure, did you guys come up with a correct answer to your debate yesterday? Because there is a correct answer to the debate. Of course, you can gauge success in more ways than the actual result at the end of the campaign. So that is qualifying for World Cup 2022. Let's actually talk about the next World Cup, because the Euro situation is such a confined space. Something bizarre could happen in this playoff. So let's just ignore that for a moment. For the next World Cup, not qualifying for that, we could live with that if we all of a sudden have an identity that the nation can get behind, that has a new generation of players that are trending in the right direction. Because that is the one complaint that we could have all had about the Mick McCarthy era, was that we didn't really have much of a clue of where was the next step for this team. We kind of felt we were operating off a mediocre level, but worse than that, we almost felt we were operating off the top level possible, operating in such a system, and quite often going into games devoid of a plan. So I'm not sure did you come up with that with the answer column, but certainly I would think that yes, you will sacrifice the ultimate success if we're going in the right direction.
But what constitutes the right direction? I mean, a style of play and how well we play is ultimately subjective. I mean, let's be honest. Irish football has been in the doldrums for 18 years now. Since the 2002 World Cup, we've had very few great moments. Shane Long at the Aviva against Germany, Euro 2016 against Italy, obviously. I mean, Euro 2012 was a disaster unless you were actually at the tournament. And maybe Sean St. Ledger's goal against Croatia, and that was it. So we've had almost literally a handful of good moments. So what I'm asking really is, like, will we really accept consistent failure to qualify for tournaments? We'll say the next two major tournaments, if we're playing quote-unquote good football. But what is good football?
I think the whole notion of writing off tournaments because there is some beautiful crystal palace shimmering in the sky that is just over the horizon is nonsensical. Like, it's a whole generation of footballers who won't actually end up qualifying for tournaments. If you're like, oh, it's grand if we don't qualify for the next one because X, Y, and Z are coming through and they're all going to automatically be good enough to qualify for future tournaments. By getting out of the habit of qualifying for tournaments, you become Scotland, who just can't qualify anymore. Like, is that what we want? The whole, I mean, you definitely have to be a little bit careful here, the baby in the bathwater. Like, Trapattoni got to a tournament, Martin O'Neill got to a tournament. Like, the performance against France in the Euros was really good. Like, there was the template there for the team to go on and become something. And I don't know what happened. I don't understand why the team never under O'Neill played like that again. It makes no sense. It makes no sense that he watched that performance and thought, actually, they're all playing really well, and never do that again. Never do that again. Never play like that again. That doesn't make any sense to me. But look, I think it's a good question. Oh, would you take a bunch of scratchy 0-0s and 1-0s in qualification for a tournament if we were playing bad football and then were able to get out of a group at a World Cup?
If that was the guarantee, absolutely, yes, you would have to consider that. But we're not dealing with guarantees here. Like, we can't even have a conversation about the 2022 World Cup until we see who is in our draw for this. Like, so finishing third in a group where we get the poxy draw with the top seed and a handy enough 2 seed, that has a completely different tint in it to not finishing in the top 2 when you've got Germany and another powerhouse in your second seed. Like, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about Bournemouth getting relegated in the Premier League last season by playing a really nice brand of football? Like, because I'm struggling to think of too many examples of teams where we complement their style of football and they end up failing. I don't think these two things are that far apart from one another. I think that one kind of follows from the other, because you're right, Colm, style is subjective. Style is the way we look at things, and it's all in the eye of the beholder, but results aren't. Results are facts. And sometimes I feel that getting good results and winning can often come with this idea that we are playing the right way, because of course we're playing the right way, because we're Irish and we're seeing our team win, and we can't take off those green-tinted spectacles sometimes. So I don't think that they're unlinked. I think that if we're having a conversation about the Stephen Kenny style having been impressive and having worked well, we're probably going to have qualified for tournaments. But if we're still having that conversation and we haven't qualified, then in my opinion, something has gone very right and we are going in the right way.
Well, I would love nothing more than for Ireland to start playing really good football, especially under Stephen Kenny, because I really hope, like most people, that it works out really well for Kenny. But if you think about it, like just say the last 30 years, in Irish life in general, far beyond sport, some of the greatest moments in this nation has been the Republic of Ireland at international tournaments, regardless of how we played, because it brought the whole country together. It was a collective objective for Ireland to succeed on the international stage, pretty much regardless of how we played. And if we played any sort of cohesive, entertaining, attractive football, it was a bonus. But my question is, realistically, how far can Stephen Kenny take this team in terms of playing really good football? Because remember, it's an international side. It's a part-time job, essentially, in terms of how often you see the players.
It's the same with everybody.
Really hard to get it
and for the rivals, and for his opposition. I don't buy the part-time thing at all, because like Roberto Mancini doesn't have any more time with the Italian side. Like, it's not like, you know, Spain managed to get that thing going because they had the backbone of the Barcelona team and some other world-class players there, and they had longevity in terms of they actually had two managers over the course of their period. But notwithstanding
they
that,
have world-class players. They have world-class players, and we don't. Like, what model are we following here? What international team, the equivalent of Ireland standard, plays really good football?
Iceland.
Are we going out on our own here?
Better football than we did to qualify for last eight to the Euros. Like, loads of teams have managed to play good football. Most teams. This is a point Nathan made as somebody who is a Nations League aficionado / nerd. Most international teams are playing more progressive football, more effective progressive football. And I think that if we are playing good football and don't qualify because of bad luck, fair enough. I think if we're playing good football and getting beaten 2-0 and 3-0 game after game after game by mediocre opposition, that's a failure. And I think even you, Owen, would accept that. Like, play good football but lose, and lose repeatedly. No one's going to sign up for that in the long run.
But like, I mean, I think I don't think we're genuinely going to be sitting here having a conversation saying we play good football, but God, we lost every single time. Like, I just don't see that being a real debate down the line, that we're actually complimenting us on complimenting Stephen Kenny and his team on playing good football, and that's ending up in Ireland losing games. Like, I'm just trying to think of, like, what Nathan has said there is correct, that there is a trend where the smaller or at least mid-tier teams in Europe are playing a brand of football that affords them more opportunities in games, that affords them the opportunity to not park the bus in games. Like, I mean, qualifying for tournaments is, like, by definition what you want to do as an Ireland manager, and it's really important for us because the mere fact of being there is so important for us as a nation who love the big event when it comes to sports. But if you look at it in another way, like, you look at the last World Cup, for example, like, the Netherlands weren't there, and I guess there was still a sense that they were still going in the right direction beyond that point, and that they had a good crop of youngsters who were going to take it to the next level. I'm not for 1 second comparing us to the Netherlands, or saying that they shouldn't have been in that competition because they absolutely should have qualified. But I'm just saying that there can be hope from not qualifying for things. And I think that we will be able to identify the lack of hope if it's not there, because that's certainly what it was at the end of the Nick McCarthy era, I felt.
This could be our Germany moment. Like, Germany changed after, was it Euro 2000? They had a complete overhaul of their system. And, the last 20 years have been fantastic for Germany. Obviously, we're not going to get to that level. But I would love the idea of Stephen Kenny taking this in a new direction. But ultimately, will it be a success if we're thereabouts in playoffs and just miss out in making a tournament, or even if we're a flat
that's our standard.
Tournament?
That's our standard, is thereabouts. Like, Mick McCarthy was thereabouts until Roy Keane dragged us over the line in the 2002 qualifying campaign. Like, Jack Charlton was thereabouts. Obviously, it was a much more difficult era to qualify for tournaments because you actually had 8 teams who qualified for his first Euros, which is, when you think about it, an absolutely sensational achievement. Look, I don't know if we're going to solve this right now, but we will come back to it. 8:35 this morning. What's the definition of success for everybody out there?